It's time for today's travel and cruise industry news. With the latest from travel and cruises around the world, here's your host, Chillie Falls.
Good morning. Welcome to Travel and Cruise Industry News on this Thursday, September 30th, 2021. Today is International Podcast Day. I'm not even sure why I said that, but that's what it is. Today in the sailing world, we've got several ships that actually sail today. Down in Miami, Carnival Sunrise, that was the last ship I was on before the shutdown. Sails out of Miami, and also the Celebrity Summit will sail this afternoon from Miami. Up in Port Canaveral, the MSC Divina set sail today. And out in California and Los Angeles, actually San Pedro, not to be confused with Long Beach, the Grand Princess sails today. My special guest this morning on Chillie Chats will be Stan Sandberg of travelinsurance.com. We're going to talk a little bit about post-COVID travel insurance and other things in that area. In the news today, Hurricane Sam strengthens a bit. Victor is next. Long Beach Embarkation Improvements. Royal Caribbean Tracing Bans. Seaborne Encore Earlier Than Planned. And Carnival makes a big commitment to Jamaica. That and more this morning on Thursday Travel and Cruise Industry News. So now for my special guest. Here we go. My guest on Chillie Chats this morning is Stan Sandberg. He's with an aggregator called travelinsurance.com. And welcome to Chillie Chats.
Well, thank you very much, Chillie. It's great to be here this morning. I started and founded travelinsurance.com, I guess a little under 10 years ago, but really started to really take shape about 6 or 7 years ago. And I founded the company really with the express purpose to try to simplify the world of travel insurance and give consumers a way to shop for it online, in a quick, easy, like all the information is a couple of clicks away. We work with the most recognizable insurance carriers like AIG Travel Guard, Generali, Travelex, names that people will have seen throughout. If they're travelers, they will have seen the names of our partners. And so the idea was really to just make it easy for people to shop for it on their own. And so little did we know and couldn't really have anticipated or expected a pandemic to derail the travel industry completely. But fortunately, even a global pandemic is going to hold people back from traveling or cruising, and there's a big pent up demand, and we see a lot of people now coming back into the market.
Yep, we've started cruising, many of us. I have not been able to yet, but many of my audience has. One of the questions that a lot of the audiences in our discussions over the past couple months has led to is some of the cruise lines are requiring what has been tagged COVID rider insurance.
Yep.
Tell us exactly what post-COVID travel insurance is like and how it's changed.
Sure. So I think if we look at sort of pre-COVID insurance, there was in many travel insurance plans, not all, but many, there was this little exclusion baked into the standard travel insurance plan that excluded losses resulting from either directly or indirectly from a pandemic or epidemic. That, I think, was a standard term that probably appears in just about all kinds of insurance contracts, including travel insurance. Obviously, that, as I said before, no one sort of imagined a world where we would have travel impacted by a actual global pandemic, and sure enough, we did. And so, so what many viewed as a product that is sort of perfectly designed to protect a traveler from the from the perils of things like, well, they know hurricanes, storm, weather, all sickness. I think many people believe that the COVID pandemic was a perfect should have been a reason for travel insurance to cover them in those instances. And pre-COVID, a lot of plans didn't. So that was a catalyst for the insurance carriers to really put pen to paper and take a different approach. And so fast forward to where we are today, there are travel insurance plans that are what I'll call COVID friendly, or pandemic friendly rather. And so the biggest shift was that that exclusion was eliminated. So that generic general overarching exclusion was eliminated in most plans. And then the carriers began to treat COVID like any other medical condition or sickness or illness. And so, as you're probably familiar, one of the biggest concerns of travelers when they're traveling is, what happens if I get sick? What happens if I get sick before I'm supposed to leave, or what happens when I get sick on my trip? And so travel insurance is designed to provide trip cancellation in the event that you unexpectedly get sick, and you get so sick that you're not going to be able to go on your trip. And so a trip cancellation plan would provide reimbursement for that. And then in the event you got sick while traveling and you couldn't continue with your trip, travel insurance was designed to either provide reimbursement for the loss of the unused portion of the trip, and even provide reimbursement for medical expenses which you might have incurred as a result of this unexpected illness or sickness on the trip. So now all of a sudden, in a world where COVID was, of real concern, travel insurance did become a product that could protect a traveler from, an unexpected, bout with COVID. And so again, it's treated as any other medical condition or illness. It's important to note that that these even COVID-friendly plans do still have some limitations. So the standard plans are not going to cover trip cancellation for things like a border closing, sort of a government restricted travel restriction. It's not going to provide, standard travel insurance is not going to provide trip cancellation or interruption coverage for a sort of government imposed mandated quarantine, sort of a generic quarantine. Of course, this may be obvious to many of your viewers because they're probably all seasoned travelers. If standard travel insurance is not also going to cover the just the general fear of, the place I'm going to is just identified as a hotspot. There's an outbreak. I just don't feel comfortable going for whatever reason. Again, a travel insurance plan is not going to provide coverage for that scenario. Fortunately, there is a specialized product within the world of travel insurance. Again, many of your viewers probably are familiar with it. It's a feature called, or a benefit, or sometimes called a coverage item, called the optional cancel for any reason upgrade. So in the industry, we refer to it as CFAR. So cancel for any reason is CFAR. And it's generally sold as an optional upgrade to a standard travel insurance plan. And you see CFAR primarily with the more premium travel insurance plans, so at the higher end of the range, although some providers will give a CFAR option for more economical plans. Nevertheless, the CFAR, if you qualify for it and you purchase it, it gives you the most flexibility, and it does give you the ability to cancel for any reason. And there are a couple of terms which are important to understand with CFAR. The first is, well, it can be expensive, so it can add, somewhere between another 40 to 60% of the base premium price to the price of that policy. So, for example, I'm just making this up, but if your policy, your base policy cost $100, if it offered CFAR and you elected to upgrade and purchase it, the cost could be somewhere between $140 and $160. So that's kind of the premium you would have to pay for that flexibility. Importantly, also the requirement to purchase CFAR or to have it available in a plan, if it offers it, is tied to when you made that initial trip deposit or payment. So if you plunk down even $50 towards a future cruise, even if that cruise is 9 months away or 12 months away, that would be considered your initial deposit date. And at that point, the clock would start ticking. You would have anywhere from 7 days to 21 days, again, depending on the plan and provider. But you'd have between 7 and 21 days to purchase your policy and purchase the cancel for any reason piece. And if you're outside of that 7 to 21 day window, CFAR is not going to be available to that policy. And so, and again, just to make the point, CFAR will give the traveler the ability to cancel for any reason. And the reimbursement is not 100%. The reimbursement is 75% for most CFAR plans. Some economical plans, I see you have a visitor. But for some CFAR plans that are more economical, the reimbursement will be 50%, and then you'll find that those plans tend to be also less expensive than the 75% plans.
While we're looking kind of at costs,
yeah.
All right, let's say I'm going on a cruise, next week, and I want to be covered. So that should there be a COVID outbreak on the cruise and I get sick and they send me off the ship and I have to fly home, I'm covered for that.
Well, yes.
Is it a lot more expensive than it used to be? I mean, obviously I would think the premiums have got to have gone up from what we were used to pre-pandemic.
Well, not necessarily. The pricing of travel insurance policies traditionally has been based off of kind of two factors: the age of the traveler and the costs that they are insuring. So, simply put, the more expensive of a trip cost that you're insuring, the more expensive the insurance. And like any kind of insurance product, especially insurance products with a medical component, the older you are, the more expensive the insurance is. And that's just a sort of a dynamic of how insurance works. So no different with travel insurance. And so what we didn't see was a sort of a grand repricing of travel insurance because of the pandemic. So you're not necessarily going to pay more today than you would have paid 2 years ago for a similar trip. Now, with that said, it's also important to note that travel insurance and the price of travel insurance is still regulated at the state level. So every state has its own insurance department, and so pricing can be rather static. They're required to file their sort of plans and the pricing structure of those plans. and you can't really deviate from that outside of what has already been filed with the state. And so what in effect that does is it also sets the price for a particular plan, and so the cost of, let's say, for example, a plan that you would find on AIG Travel Guard's website. If you were to quote the same trip details for that particular plan at travelinsurance.com or cruiseworld.com, I'm just making that up because that's probably a real site, but I was just making it up. The price of that plan is going to be the same everywhere. So there's not going to be like a discount or a benefit for shopping in one place over the other. So within a particular provider and within a particular set of plans, because the pricing is going to be the same everywhere, so you can't really shop on price within a particular provider and plan. That's where you get the real benefit of shopping with like a comparison site like travelinsurance.com, because now you can line up that plan against other providers' plans of similar, a similar level, and be able to basically find something that might be more cost effective, might have slightly different benefits, and so that's the benefit. But bringing it back to one of the things you mentioned in your question was this concept of if you get COVID and you have to end your trip and have to fly home. Yes, travel insurance is going to have coverage for that, but understanding that if a travel insurance plan and their emergency evacuation or their benefits, they're not going to be able to override government mandated sort of travel restrictions. So if you are not permitted to travel or you're not permitted to fly back into a country because you have COVID, travel insurance plan is not going to be a workaround to that restriction.
Okay. When is the best time to purchase our travel insurance? As soon as we put a deposit down on a cruise, or even before that?
No, it really is when you put that first deposit down on a cruise. So when you're in the research phase, before you've spent any money, it's not a bad idea to look at travel insurance as as another sort of feature of your trip that you'd want to research. So you kind of have an idea of what's out there, what the cost is going to be regarding your particular trip. But you do not purchase the insurance until you've actually made that initial deposit for your trip. And then just simply put, yes, it's very important to purchase your insurance shortly, either right away or shortly after you've made that deposit. And so in addition to the optional upgrade for cancel for any reason, probably the most important time sensitive benefit within a travel insurance plan is what's called a pre-existing condition exclusion waiver. So most travel insurance plans will exclude losses that result from a pre-existing condition unless you have purchased the plan and it has a waiver of that exclusion. And so the pre-existing condition waiver, again, is typically tied to when you make that initial trip deposit. So it can be, again, 7 up to 21 days. There are some plans that will provide a pre-existing condition waiver tied to the final trip payment date. So as long as you purchase the insurance before you've made that final payment towards your trip, you will qualify for the pre-existing condition waiver. That is probably the most important consideration, and that's why we always recommend people purchase their insurance very shortly after their initial deposit. And then I think, I think cruisers may have another consideration, which is depending on the time of year of the cruise. If you are planning to cruise in the Caribbean or southeastern Atlantic during the Atlantic hurricane season, you better purchase your insurance well ahead of that, because if you've purchased that cruise and you're set to go and you don't have insurance, and a storm starts to brew and that storm is named and now it's on the map effectively, it's too late to buy insurance to cover that trip. So again, if you plunk your money down, you buy the insurance, and now you've got coverage in place.
Yeah, and I'm talking about preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gone on a trip, maybe early years of my cruising, that I didn't have insurance. But anymore, I mean, that's a part of the price that I consider for a cruise. It's got to have my insurance covered. So.
Yeah, and if you think about the overall cost of insurance with the trip cancellation piece in place, okay, it's going to be maybe somewhere between 7 and 10%. If you get the cancel for any reason, it's going to be maybe 11 or 12% of the cost of the trip. But if you break that down, if you're going on, let's say it's a $2,000 trip and the insurance is going to be $200 or $250 on top of that, I mean, over a 7-day cruise, what is that? Is that like one meal a day, and or a taxi or Uber, or it really is a sensible and cost-effective way to add a layer of protection to your trip. And so thinking about it that way, I think we're in a world today where people understand the risks of travel and the benefits of travel insurance. So we've seen a lot of growth in the industry. We've seen a lot of more people coming into the travel insurance marketplace. But we of course, we think it's a no-brainer. And again, I'm a little biased about that.
All right. My guest today has been Stan Sandberg of travelinsurance.com. Stan, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it. And who knows, one of these days, if I sail on the Norwegian breakaway out of New York, which is sailing started last week, maybe I'll wave at you from a cruise ship in New York.
Please do. And if you happen to be in New York and you have a couple of minutes, let's definitely get together. I really appreciate you having me on your show today, and look forward to speaking again.
All right. Thanks a lot, Stan. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Chillie.
All right. Let's see here. I got to do this. You know me with technical stuff, folks. I can screw it up any way I possibly can. That was a terrific interview with Stan Sandberg of travelinsurance.com. And folks, in case you're not quite following the overall structure of Stan's company, he's like a travel agent is to cruises, only on the insurance side of things. He represents a number of companies. And to be perfectly transparent, I have never dealt with Stan business-wise, but he represents Generali, who is one of the companies that over the years that I have used a lot for my travel insurance. He used to also rep Allianz. Allianz changed their marketing structure recently, and they no longer use an aggregator like Stan is. So by all means, folks, if you want somebody, and again, I look at this, what I plan to do is next time I book a cruise, which hopefully will be soon, I'm going to contact Stan and get my insurance through him. Then I've got a representative as opposed to just a company giving me travel insurance. It doesn't cost any more, just like dealing with a travel agent does not cost any more money. So really appreciate Stan's time and effort this morning. Good guy. I enjoyed that. So, all right. Let's see where we are. Getting back to the news now. We've got sidetracked quite a bit this morning. All right, got to take a look at the weather. We got Hurricane Sam. It's an intense hurricane. It's going to continue in a northwestward path. As of 8 a.m. this morning, Atlantic Standard Time, it's about 350 miles northeast of the northern Leeward Islands, about 770 miles southeast of Bermuda, 145 mile an hour, baby. This is a no joke storm. Thankfully, it does not appear that it's going to have any grave effect on any land. It's moving northwest at 12 miles an hour with an increase in forward speed expected tonight. A turn toward the north is anticipated by late tomorrow, and a northern motion is forecast to begin northeast motion is expected to begin on Saturday. The core of Sam will continue to pass well to the northeast of the leewards today and pass east of Bermuda tomorrow. Hurricane force winds extend 60 miles an hour from the center. Tropical force winds about 130 miles, so it has grown. The central pressure is 937, so it's dropped back down to its lowest point now. Now, Victor is the next tropical storm that we've got to take a look at. You know, we've been watching the twins as they came off of Africa. Victor was the second one. Summary as of this morning, it's about 550 miles south-southwest of Cabo Verde Islands, 45 mile an hour winds. It's moving west-northwest at 13. Pressure's 1,004, so it's starting to come down. Additional strengthening is forecast. Victor should become a hurricane by tomorrow, but then it's going to rather quickly weaken, we think. And it's probably not going to cause a whole lot of trouble over the weekend. The other system, which was the first of the twins, you know, it's still there, but it is just no chance of development. So I'm looking for that to just dissipate shortly. So then out on the Pacific, we now have two storms. Two systems to look at. A broad area of low pressure about 1,500 miles west of the southern tip of Baja. It's producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions are expected to be conducive for slow development during the next several days. Tropical depression could form over the weekend or early next week, while the system moves generally westward about 10 miles an hour. 20% chance of formation in the next 48 hours, 40% of the next 5 days. Now, there's also an area of low pressure a couple hundred miles south-southwest of Manzanilla. It continues to produce showers and thunderstorms. This system is moving west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Some slow development is possible early Friday before it reaches an area of stronger upper-level winds. Only about a 10% chance of this sucker going anywhere. So, not a whole lot of likelihood of any major impacts on land. Doesn't look like. All right, Long Beach, California. Anyone who's ever been on a cruise and sailed and returned to the United States with stops abroad will remember the embarkation and debarkation process, and it can be slow due to customs and border protection procedures. even more so in Long Beach due to the various policies in place in California. This is now set to change for Carnival Cruise Line guests who will use the same facial recognition technology that's used in Florida at Port Miami and Port Canaveral. The process means that guests no longer need to see an official before getting on or off a ship on embarkation day. Neither is it necessary to show or scan your passport, as these documents have already been uploaded into Carnival's system. So that is what's happening there in Long Beach. Should make matters much easier. All right. Royal Caribbean. They have entered into an agreement, actually a 2-year agreement for technology partnership with TraceSafe. TraceSafe and Royal Caribbean developed the Tracelet contact tracing wearable bands, which can be used on cruise ships to easily identify close contacts in the case of a passenger or crew member that tests positive for COVID. Both companies work closely together to design and manufacture the wearable bands that can meet both Royal Caribbean's high standards for comfort and the cruise line's commitment to sustainability. Also from Royal Caribbean has informed guests of an additional third option to pre-cruise testing. The cruise line has set up a capability of testing a limited number of guests at the terminal. However, this should only be used as a last resort. So don't count on this one, folks, unless you absolutely have to. One, it's going to be expensive. But secondly, they don't want you to use this unless you just absolutely have to. So, all right. Luxury line Seaborne has announced that its vessel Seaborne Encore will resume sailing earlier than previously anticipated. That's kind of different in today's world. The ship is now scheduled to head back into service on February the 19th. Of course, that's in 22, with a series of new 10 and 11-night itineraries to the Canary Islands and Mediterranean round trip from Lisbon, Portugal. Previously, Encore was set to return on April 17th. She will be Seaborne's third ship to return to sailing. Seaborne Encore will sail around the Spanish archipelago and the charming island of Madeira between February and April. The vessel will also operate a 15-night voyage in the Mediterranean from Lisbon to Athens, Greece, from which she will sail her originally scheduled Eastern Mediterranean deployment for the summer months ahead. So that's Seaborne. I've never been on a Seaborne ship. We don't really talk about them much. They're a luxury line. So, and it's a little more expensive. All right. Although strict health protocols will remain in place, Carnival Corporation has made a huge deal with Jamaica to include that Caribbean nation in 110 cruises or more over the next 6 months. The news comes after Carnival Sunrise was one of the few cruise ships to visit the only port in Jamaica currently in operation for cruise visitors, that being Ocho Rios. The announcement comes after a meeting between Carnival Corporation CEO Donald Arnold, Minister Bartlett from Jamaica, and other tourist officials. The meeting took place in Miami this week. So Carnival is sticking with Jamaica, and hopefully now, the rest of the ports in Jamaica need to get back open. So, you got Falmouth and you got Montego Bay. So, they got to get all of them open and going. So. All right. Let's go see who's with us today. Again, it's been a kind of a long program this morning with the interview with Stan. And unfortunately, folks, our timing and all didn't work out that we could do that live and you guys participate. So it was taped this morning and played back. All right, Tom's with us. Cindy's here. Nikki's here. Tom Henry says, that's hot air. Tom, we booked a 16-day Miami to L.A. To Los Angeles, Panama Canal on Bliss February 4th to replace the Jewel cruise canceled yesterday. Nice. That's probably one of the things I'm looking at also is to do a Panama Canal. Nikki says, I'm envious, haven't had fair food since we left Oklahoma. Carol's with us. She says, hi, everybody. Emily's with us. Emily, we had a New Yorker on this morning. Stan's up there in New York. He lives in New York City. His office is down in Manhattan. Cindy says, sounds like an awesome cruise. Road trip then, Hot Air Tom says, the fair runs through Sunday, October the 3rd. Come and visit. Hot Air Tom says to Cindy, port's not as good. We had Aruba and Curacao on the original, now Falmouth and Cartagena. Oh, well. Yeah, well, that's not quite the same. Kenneth's with us up in Pennsylvania. Hey, Kenneth, good to see you again. 2 ports this cruise, Colón and San Juan del Sur in Nicaragua. Hot Air Tom says he booked his tours this AM for all ports but Falmouth. Not an abundant selection there. We'll wait and see if there are additions. I like Falmouth, Tom. When I was there, I'm probably going to be doing a piece on that sometime shortly. I went to Margaritaville. As a matter of fact, this shirt came from Falmouth. Just wrote it in. It's a nice little shopping area. And had lunch in Margaritaville and several adult beverages. And then I rode my scooter right back to the ship and got on it. And yeah, that was, in case you didn't really see during the interview this morning, the Cottonelle stopped by for a visit yesterday. It was Charmin that came for a visit. So Cottonelle kind of switched his tail over in front of the camera, but he didn't want to get on my lap. And you could hear a couple of meows in the background. And then he says, the hell with this, I'm leaving. So Cindy says you should come on the cruise. Jason and I are on October 16th. Ruben Curacao are on the Tenerife, but it's Carnival night in CL. Nicole's with us. Hi, Nicole. Glad you're here. She says good points from the interview. I think so too. Let's face it, travel insurance is not the most exciting thing to talk about, but it certainly is important, especially in today's world. And folks, I highly recommend if you're going on a cruise, make sure you got insurance. So I found it interesting that the insurance side of things is not really referring to it as a COVID rider, like the cruise lines and other people are talking about it. So I found it very, very interesting this morning. Yes, purchase within the first 2 weeks from deposit. I completely agree. Usually the way I normally do things, I book a cruise. And quite frankly, folks, I'm not one to book a deposit and pay on it. I used to back on the first, probably 15 or 20 cruises I did. But since then, when I book one, I write the check and get it over with or give them the credit card and get it over with. But anyway, I take care of the cruise. I take care of my insurance. And then if I've got to deal with flights and hotels, I take care of that. In that order, exactly in that order. So right after the cruise comes the insurance. And then I worry about getting to the port. That's just the way I do things. So Cindy says, Hot Air Tom, it'd been great if you could come along. Nicole says, trips are investments and protecting them is definitely important. So totally agree with that. Absolutely. And everybody says, thanks to Stan. That was awesome. Are you paying more to deal with too? Are you paying more to deal with? Not sure what your question is, Emily. If you're asking, does it cost more to deal like with Stan than if you go direct on insurance? No, that's all regulated. It's just like the cruise lines. If you use a travel agent, the travel agent is going to get you the same price as if you were dealing direct with the cruise lines. That's just the way it works. And the same with travel insurance. Yeah, I have dealt directly with Generali, for instance, in the past. Now that I know somebody like Stan exists, I'll go to Stan. I know it's not going to cost me any more, and I have the benefit, if I ever need it, that I've got somebody that I know is going to be representing me back home should it happen. If I need the help, I'm going to have it. So to me, that's worth all the money in the world. The one time you need it, it's worth every time that you don't need it. So Hot Air Tom says, just checking my annual Allianz policy. It expires November 3rd, so I need to make a renewal. That was a question I meant to ask Stan and got sidetracked and never got to it, was on annual policies and how that works. And that was on my list of questions that I just flat didn't get to it. So we're going to have to ask Stan another question, aren't we? On how annual, if you go the route of an annual policy, how that works. Emily says, I did check out Allianz. There's so many insurance companies out there. Yeah, I agree. And that's where, Emily, an aggregator, comes in handy because they represent numerous companies and they're going to give you the one that fits your needs best. And one of your needs can be price. And it's not necessarily the cheapest is the best by all means, but you have to, obviously it has to fit your budget. Cute tracking watches, NCL should get theirs too. Emily says, Gretchen, which one do you use? I should get a watch band on my February RCL cruise. Yes, you probably will. I assume will have them by then. Why the colors? Anyone's personal choice. Medallion is colored by user cruise status. First timer is blue, second gold, but band is just your choice of fashion, says Gretchen. You can have a personalized medallion if you submit a design or pick you want. Maybe I will stand for my cruise and use Stan for my cruise insurance. I have not bought any yet. What is his website? It's just travelinsurance.com. And that takes you right to it. So, and the link's down below, Emily, in the description of the show today. All right, that's going to wrap me up today. Actually, I'm still have something to do for today. And hopefully, if this works today, folks, we're going to have a special guest on the show tomorrow. Our Chillie's Cruises reporter on the ground in Cozumel is going to be taking a look at the first time that crew has been allowed to get off the ship in Cozumel since the restart. And one of the Carnival ships is there today. And hopefully we're going to have some crew members in one of the local bars in Cozumel that we're going to talk to this morning with Emily Stern down in Cozumel. Now, remember, folks, we've tried this before, but we have had some issues with Wi-Fi. Hopefully those will get sorted out. But I'm going to be talking to our friend Elizabeth here very, very shortly. So hopefully, guys, that'll do us for today. And hopefully we'll see everybody tomorrow on Friday's Travel and Cruise Industry News. Again, my thanks to Stan for a terrific morning this morning. I appreciate it. Appreciate all you guys being with me. I'll see everybody tomorrow. And as always, folks, we appreciate the thumbs up. Helps the channel. If you have not subscribed, please think about doing so. It doesn't cost anything, of course. It will give you the notifications when I go live or when I post a video. And there you can keep up with all things about travel and cruise industry news. So for today, this is the old fat travel guy. You guys stay safe, stay healthy. Have a great day. I'll see everybody back here tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Later, y'all.
I regularly post videos on all facets of the travel and cruise industry. So if you like to keep up with the latest in cruise ships, ports of call, cruises themselves, Chillie Chats, and travel and cruise industry news, just hit the little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Hit the bell notification so you'll be notified when a new video is up or we go live. This video was produced by Chillie's Cruises.